and welcome back to the Masterclass, the number one Manchester United tactical podcast. As you can see by my face, Manchester United have smashed 9 goals past 10-man Southampton in an absolutely brilliant, aggressive and complete performance. We had goals from Bruno, James, Martial with a brace. We had assists from Bruno, from Mason. There's so many, I can't even read through them. Luke Shaw with 2 assists. Wan-Bissaka with a goal. Rob will absolutely love that. It's such a brilliant performance after what we've seen from the last few games. Manchester United have put a team to the sword, which we've been asking for a very, very long time. Rob, welcome back. What have you got to say about this?
Well, never get too high, never get too low. But today you can get high at 9-0. Like we said with the Arsenal performance, which was a bit of a downer, you can look at this game, forget about the sendings off to Southampton. Manchester United played well enough today to win this game. There were so many things that went right that you can see that they corrected on the training ground. The result is a bit of a freak result, but hey, we'll take 9-0 every week.
Absolutely. Look, we've had a couple of difficult games, haven't we? And what United needed to do today is they needed to win, but I felt like they needed to win well. And from start to finish, Rob, I mean, I can't think of one player that didn't perform today, but let's focus on 2 areas where we've spoken about a lot. So let's start with the fullbacks. The fullbacks were absolutely sensational today. What I loved from both of them is that they had attacking intent, which was brilliant, but also they were really getting into good areas and they're putting in quality balls. Now, Luke Shaw has, and I agree with your point you made a couple of weeks ago, Luke Shaw right now is the best left back on form in the league. I'm not saying he's the best left back in the league on pure ability, but the way that he's playing, you're saying that, but the way he's playing and the impact that Telles has had coming in, and also the way that Ollie's developed him, so underrated, and he deserves so much credit. But Luke Shaw deserves so much credit as well. Written off by me, I wrote him off. I thought he was done at Manchester United. I didn't think he was ever going to reach these heights. Some of the balls he put in today, and Wan-Bissaka as well. When we have seen him run in from the back post, we were not seeing him do that at all. Even 3-4 weeks ago, you've got to give him credit. Got to give Ollie credit. Just such a brilliant performance and putting down a gauntlet really for Manchester City.
If Manchester United really want to be title contenders, and I've said this plenty of times before, you have to have fullbacks that do other things than just tackle. You can't have a flat back 4 in the modern game. Your fullbacks must be forwards when they're on the front foot. And what we are seeing with Luke Shaw specifically, but I think now, Aaron, we've said this maybe over several games, they are becoming front-footed, almost like wing-back wide players. And this is what they have to be. It's not a case of can they or can't they, because if they can't, you get rid and you start again. And this is why we brought Telles in. And this is why we talked about right back options for Manchester United going forward. Maybe again, looking at the youth team and players coming through from that function. But tonight, credit to the lads, and I'm really pleased more than anything for Aaron, because as I've said on this before, he's from my school. He's a local lad from where I am, and dead pleased obviously see him wear my football team's jersey. But it's just good to see him not just get the goal, but play as a progressive fullback. And we saw today 2 or 3 or 4 times him driving the ball with the ball at his feet. It's something we haven't seen from him since he signed for United. Mainly, I think, due to confidence and obviously what's on the inside of him. But now I think he's got to the point where he has to just go and do that. It doesn't matter if he's got Lindelof inside him or Maguire or someone who's slow, because we've obviously highlighted those things before. But now we're seeing that they're going and doing their attacking function. Luke Shaw on the left. Is there a left back in Europe in this form? No, I think he's absolutely on form. Riding the echelons, going higher and higher and higher. I said that he's the best right back or left back on form in the Premier League, not the best left back ever. I was saying just on form. But now I will actually go the next step and say he's probably the best left back in Europe on form, because he's doing everything, defending, attacking. He looks confident. He's crossing the ball. He looks like it's kind of like peak Cafu or something. Something's gone wrong with him. I don't know what they're feeding him at Carrington, but keep feeding him it because it's working. And I think this is where you have to pat the manager on the back, because he's the guy who has to solve all these things on the training ground, with the tactics, when they look at the video, what he expects from these players. 9-0 is a fantastic result. But what was really good was all the little bits within the game that got Manchester United to this fantastic display and a fantastic scoreline.
But that's the thing, Robin. Look, a lot of people say, oh, it's 10 men, but you might be down to 10 men, but the onus was on Manchester United to play today, to play, to create, to play with intensity, aggression, everything that we haven't seen the past 2 games. Manchester United did that in absolute bucketful today. And the thing is that this United side can blow teams away. We know that. We know that it's got a lot of firepower. There's a lot of capability. But the problem that we've seen mostly this season and at times last season is that we don't do it for longer than 20 to 30 minute spells in the game. But today, from start to finish, Rob, even at the end, I mean, we nicked, 2 or 3 goals in the last 10 minutes. At the end, we still went and went to put in more goals, create more, and we played with confidence. And that's what I'm happy to see, because the reality is we lost 6-1 to Spurs. We're conceding goals. Our defense isn't strong. We need that goal difference better. We're now the top scorers in the Premier League. So anyone that says Manchester United are playing defensive football, they don't attack, that's nonsense, because the facts are that Manchester United are the highest scoring team in the Premier League. They're higher scoring than Liverpool, a side who supposedly have the best front 3 in the world. And they're a fantastic side, don't get me wrong. A Manchester City side as well, which is free-flowing under Pep, or has been in the past. Manchester United now are beating teams convincingly, which we haven't seen for years. I mean, how big is that, this victory, as a step in the next direction, as a step for progression?
It's obviously a step in the correct direction. I think when you look at the wider picture, forget about the Tottenham result, forget about kind of where United have been hot and cold. The brass tacks is this: Manchester City are at the top of the league and have been now on this incredible run, 9 straight victories. And in that time, because they've sorted their defence out, their goal difference was around kind of +10 better than Manchester United's. Today, Manchester United have corrected that. Now, that's what's important. It doesn't really matter if you're scoring goals or not. It's about goal difference at the end of the day. So today, United have done themselves a massive favour by getting this result. But also, let's wind it back a little bit further. Manchester United, who played in the last 2 weeks and last week against Arsenal and against Sheffield United, if that Man United had turned up today against 10-man Southampton, it wouldn't have been 9-0. It wouldn't have been. United might have won the game. They might have edged it 1 or 2-0. But the lack of intensity in those 2 matches showed that there were questions being asked about a team that looked a bit tired, a little bit jaded. Maybe the top players weren't firing. And I think you were getting this perfect storm. Now, we saw with Sheffield United, that resulted in a defeat. And at Arsenal, it's a game that maybe they could have taken advantage of, a young Arsenal team who we've seen beaten today. United could have got the 3 points there, but they didn't. In this scenario, with that early red card, and it was a red card, it was, blatant, high tackle on Scott McTominay. And I'd like to talk about Scotty today in the double pivot, because I think it was a massive part of the success of the team. When you look at United, they went to work. They went and played. They decamped in the final third. They got wide, they got round, they got crosses, they were attacking, they were playing smart little 1-2s around the box. And it was just a kind of perfect, I don't want to say perfect performance, but when you win 9-0, you've kind of done most things right. But we'll talk about the little functional bits that worked really well today, and we'll take, obviously, lots of questions from everyone that's watching. But for me, the double pivot is where it starts and it begins and where it ends. And today, even with 10 men and early on in the game, McTominay and Fred were spoiling in there, working hard, getting the ball on the deck and moving it from A to B. And once you're at B, you can go from B to Z very, very quickly. And this is why I talk about you don't need to be flashy in the pivot. You don't need always some, world-class defensive midfielder doing all the work. You just need the function to be correct to be able to lay the ball off and get going. And United did that today, and it was really successful. And I think Fred and McTominay worked for the full 90 minutes. Scott was still driving the ball in the 88th minute like a madman, driving it forward. He got his goal. He deserved it. Really nice little smart finish there from outside the box. Fred kind of reverted to a left-sided, left-back role when Luke Shaw went off, was still busy. This is what you need from your double pivot. And I know a lot of people say it's a negative function in tactical terms, but what you saw tonight is not negative. It allows your front four to go and play football and you to then join them if you're actually breaking those channels.
Absolutely, Rob. We've got a comment here from Yehuda. So are we getting too high today? We got low, didn't we, after
you can have that one.
Sheffield United. So we're allowed to get high. We're allowed to celebrate it because, like I said, for last 7 years, Man United winning a game 4-0, I'd get excited because it's something we didn't see. 5-0, we didn't see.
I used to be happy with
9-0.
1-0
It's just
in the last 7 years.
Yeah, last 7 years. I mean, it's just I don't remember the game where Ollie scored 4 when he came off the bench. I mean, when was that, Rob?
I do.
When was that?
Oh,
what
God, year? 20 odd years ago, 27 years ago, something like that. Yeah,
I don't remember it. It's too young. So for me, this is the biggest victory. I remember I was at the Man United Roma game, the 7-1. That was mind blowing. But I've never experienced something like this, and it's absolutely fantastic. But I do want to go into what United did well in midfield. Now, the biggest positive for me today, Rob, is that United were patient. And you heard it in the commentary, and what they were saying was that the coaching staff was saying, be patient in the final third. The Arsenal game, we were trying to rush it too much. There's a lack of composure. Sheffield United were moving the ball too slow. What United did fantastically well today. And look, the 10 men does make a difference. But what you see from Saints is that when they don't press, which they didn't do when the young lad went off, they go narrow. And what United did fantastically well is exploited the space out wide. Mm-hmm. And they were moving from side to side quickly. You know, the front three were making fantastic runs off the ball. Mason looked brilliant today, by the way, Rob. He looked like he was right up for it. Marcus looked more comfortable on the left. Cavani, the way he lays off the ball, the way he moves into the channels is just brilliant. His movement is fantastic. But the double pivot, and I looked at it and I thought, a game against Saints, this is what he goes for in the big games. But what they did really well, Rob, is they were moving the ball quickly, like you said. Much maligned as well. I would say the same way as Wan-Bissaka and Shaw are. I would say McFred are by sections of the fan base. I complain about them. You cannot fault them today. I thought McTominay was fantastic. And when Saints went down to 10 men, he pushed up more, didn't he? And he actually, for me, I actually think he's more, much like he was against Leeds, he's more, I would say he's more dangerous going further forward because he's got a good shot on him. He's big, he's strong. When he's sitting deeper, I feel like it stifles his game a little bit. I mean, is that something Ollie can use perhaps in other games where we have lots of possession and he allows McTominay to step out the double pivot, get closer to Bruno?
Yes and no. Like Scott McTominay coming through the system, was a forward. So this is a guy that does know what happens in the last third of the pitch. People kind of talk about him like he's some strange regressive midfielder, but he plays in more workman-like roles because he is a big lad. He's a big unit. He can travel around. He can play that kind of destructive role. Yes, he's not Paul Pogba. He's not going to get the ball on the deck and play you these kind of beautiful passes from left to right and through the channels. That's not really his game. But not everyone has to be Paul Pogba. This is what I keep trying to explain about the double pivot, is that you sometimes just need functionality in there. And I get that McFred are not the sexiest duo in front of a back four. I think people would love to, if you had a Kante in there or someone like that, everyone would be a lot more higher on it. And they'd be like, yeah, we've got this top class defensive midfielder and we feel better about the world. Well, what you saw today is that in the Premier League, you need some aggression. I said it in the last podcast, because everything comes in the Premier League from being aggressive. Even the red card in the first minute or the second minute of whatever it was comes from McTominay going in aggressively with this young lad and this young lad panicking, putting his foot up too high and going through him and going down to 10 men. Now, some will just say it's a silly tackle. It is a silly tackle for a young lad. It's a bit of bad luck for him, but it comes from being aggressive. You make the opponent make a mistake. So that's where all good things come from in football. I think in English football specifically, is if you're aggressive, you can turn the tide on teams, especially hard-working ones like Southampton. So we saw that today, and I said I think that double pivot worked an absolute treat. I think Fred, if you're going to have Fred and McTominay in the team, play to their strengths. Allow them to go and do the work that they do best. Can you imagine if Matic was in there today? We know that he would have been flatter, slower, the ball would have gone more sideways, and United just wouldn't have got up the pitch quicker enough. Whereas what we did see was that they were driving it. You saw Maguire and Lindelof were kind of playing almost as like attacking central midfielders.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw the average position map. It was pretty much above the halfway line.
All in the Southampton last third.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
And you had Shaw pretty much as a left midfielder. Wan-Bissaka was sitting deep. It was only really Fred that was sitting back, and Lindelof was a little bit behind him. But yeah, the way that Maguire stepped into midfield and was spraying passes, that's what United need, don't they, Rob? Having people at the back who can play, who can start attacks, who are comfortable on the ball.
Well, they're ball players, both of them. So Lindelof and Maguire are both ball players. So they should be more comfortable in that scenario. What it tells me, though, is at half-time, even though United had a substantial lead, is that Ole wasn't saying, right, cool it down, let's just take the points and go home. They actually went after more goals. And I think that's significant. That is a mindset thing. They've got in that game, and even at 5-0, 6-0, 7-0, it didn't really let up. 1 minute to go of the game, they're still for it. They're still looking, they're still going for the throat. That's a fantastic thing. That's what I want to see. I want to see that aggression. I want to see them leave it all on the pitch every week, every game, and walk off, and we go, do you know what? Whatever happened with the result, they tried everything. They pushed as hard as they could. Today, they pushed as hard as they could against a team that lost 2 players, 2 send-ins off. I don't think there's any real need to kind of debate both those send-ins off. They were send-ins off according to the letter of the law. And they got the goals as rewards. But for me, in this title challenge, whatever you want to call it, it was really important to cut that goal difference gap to Manchester City. Because now it just makes City tomorrow think about something else. And it's been too easy for City maybe in the last 2 or 3 weeks where they've been winning games and looking really good. They haven't even got Kevin De Bruyne and they're just winning games. Manchester United now need to be that team that challenge them. But you can only do that by putting all these other teams to the sword.
That's what you have to do, Rob, to win titles. You have to put teams to the sword. And that's why I was so happy, because when Southampton went down to 10 men, United went for the jugular, and 4-0 at half time. I do want to talk about a few players that did get on the score sheet. So we got Jordan here, and I agree with what Jordan's saying. Wan-Bissaka and Shaw were the men of the match. Aaron really stepped up today. Brilliant performance. I absolutely do agree with that. And he made a really good slide tackle at the end as well. We thought he got injured, but he's okay. An interesting comment here from Shawshank saying 5 goals now, 5+ goals, 8 times under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. I did not realize it's that many. I mean, that's quite remarkable, isn't it, Rob?
People tell me all the time that Ole's negative mindset. I hear it all the time. Oh, he's a negative manager. He plays a double pivot. Why is he playing 2 defensive midfielders? And it makes me realise that a lot of people don't look at the kind of modern tactics of the game across country to country to country. It's not a negative thing where you can go out and score goals like that. And as you said there, 5+ goals on 8 occasions. It does show that United are an attacking team. It's just that sometimes they have a little bit of a personality crisis. In some games, they look a little bit green. They don't have the mentality always to kind of rise to more difficult challenges. Let's be honest, Sheffield United, they've had better form in the last 2 or 3 weeks. They've won again tonight.
They won today, yeah.
They won tonight. They're obviously on a little bit of a little bit of a jump. And I saw them play the week before they played United, and I was a little bit worried because they'd played better even though they lost. And they took advantage of United just in terms of mentality that day, not doing the job. But what's good is that after the Arsenal game, feeling better about themselves, that they kind of got a draw there and they didn't lose, that they've come out for this game and they've just kind of brushed it all away. They've taken advantage of Southampton's bad mistake after 2 minutes of losing a man. But that's a good Southampton team. Even with all the injuries that they've got and the changes, the core of the team is still there in defence, in midfield. Ward-Prowse was there. Danny Ings was there. It's the same kind of 11 with 2 or 3 extra guys from the youth system. But United carved through them from back to front. And they did it over and over and over and over again. They never got bored of it. And that's how you become elite.
Rob, we've got a great victory when Helen is happy. We've got Helen in the comments. Great play by the team. Got a bit worried at the second half. First 20 minutes, they created some great teamwork. Very happy. Great to see Martial on the score sheet. That's exactly what I want to talk about. Anthony Martial. Yeah. What Ollie did is that he did the right thing. He took off a few players at half time. I wasn't too bothered about Cavani coming off. We've got a big game on the weekend. We're playing Everton. We have to win that game. And this is Everton's side who can hurt anyone in the league. Cavani came off, Martial came on, and I thought it was a great move. Now, Martial's had a really, really tough week. Honestly, he's had a really tough week. We've seen some horrible things on social media, which are absolutely disgusting. A few of our players have faced these absolutely abhorrent words, and it's just disgusting. You saw the reports coming out that he might be getting a bodyguard, or he's asked the club to sort that out for him. A lot of these things mess with your mentality. He has not played well, but today was perfect for him to come on, score a few goals, get your confidence up. And he looked up for it today, Rob. I'm not saying he suddenly turned around his form, but what Ollie's done really well. Dan James is on the score sheet as well. Players and Donny van der Beek got 45 minutes. Didn't really affect the game as much as a few other players. But look, he got 45 minutes to try and impress. That's a fantastic move by Oli because it's giving certain players a rest. I mean, Bruno, I thought would come off a little bit earlier, but it's giving other players confidence. This is a squad game. If Manchester United want to have a successful season this season, they have to have, not just 12 or 13 players performing. 16 or 17 of the squad have to be able to come in and replace the starters and keep a similar level. And we know that's not the case. We know that. When you make changes, United's level of performance drops off. But what we saw today is that certain players got goals, and that will do them the world of good. And Oli will be delighted because now he's got a squad which is just chomping at the bit for the next game.
Yeah, I tweeted at half-time, it was this kind of game is the perfect opportunity for the substitutes to come on and make a name for themselves. They've not had the minutes that they want. You've seen that Martial has been effectively dropped. He was the first choice number 9, and then now he's not obviously in the team. Cavani's taken that place. And then it's a chance for Donny to come on and do something. I think one of the biggest down points of this game, if you can say there's any down point from a 9-0 victory, is that Donny van de Beek was anonymous in the second half. Absolutely anonymous. He got booked after 5 minutes. He was too deep, wrong side of the pivot, got caught. And then after that, really wasn't making the runs that I wanted to see. There was 2 or 3 times where he was breaking into the box as in the second man run, which is what he wants to do. That's his game. But I think this was your perfect opportunity, really, for Ole to have taken Bruno off at half time. I still think Bruno looks a little bit tired and a little bit jaded, but we're all fully aware that Bruno Fernandes does not want to miss a minute of football because he said it. He keeps saying it. I'm not tired. I'm not tired. I'm not tired. Every interview he does, he keeps reaffirming it that he wants to play. So I'm sure what he's telling the camera is exactly what he's telling his manager as well. And his manager has allowed him to play up to that today. So we know Marcus needs a bit of rest. He's had injuries. So Rashford came off today. But of course, Tony came on at half time and it was an opportunity for him to find a net. And what was really, really good about his goals was the manner of how he took them. And even the little dink that went the wrong side of the post showed that he's still Anthony Martial. There's still that confidence in him somewhere to make that finish. Again, when you're winning 4-5, 6-7-0, it's a lot easier to make that finish or have a go at it. But what I liked about Anthony's goal, especially the first one, was that he's got to be strong in the middle of the box. And then he's got to finish. And he's got to finish with aggression and be ruthless and hit it in the roof of the net. And that's the kind of goal that I'm constantly told that Anthony Martial can't score. But I believe he can. So I think when he's in that area around the penalty spot, he showed last year that he can now do that role, use his strength, get some balance in there, beat his man, and finish with a bit of power, not with some kind of half-assed lazy finish. But he did that today. And that's good because it shows that Anthony Martial is still in the building somewhere. So he's had a bad run. There's no doubt that I think Cavani's earned the number 9 shirt. He's earned that starting berth. And it was absolutely the right thing to take him off at halftime, I think, with Cavani, in the sense that Cavani is a little bit older and there are battles to come. There's a long season ahead. And whatever you can save these boys now at the moment, you save it. Taking Luke Shaw off, who had a little bit of a knock before, give him 45 minutes off. He's been exceptional for that first 45. He's helped you win the game just in that kind of flick of a switch.
Apparently, Cavani got injured, according to Ollie. We've got a comment here from Sean.
Okay, well, if that's the case, and then that's the right decision, isn't it? You don't put him back out there if he's got a knock or anything like that. Who knows what that injury is? That could be Ole just being a bit of kidology, just saying, yeah, he got injured, so I pulled him off. We don't know. We'll see, obviously, in the days ahead what that means, or hopefully it's not a bad injury. But it's good to see that Anthony Martial spent 45 minutes hunting down that Southampton defence, because if Cavani is injured and can't play in the next match, you now feel a little bit better, don't you? That Tony can come back into the team. He scored a couple of goals. He got the penalty as well. You just feel that little bit more confidence in him.
Yeah, it's massive, Rob. And what I did see from him, and look, I'm still not, I'm not going to just be fully convinced with one performance because he needs to do it now for, 2, 3, 4, 5 games. But he looked much more dangerous, sharper. Dare I say, he had more desire when he was playing at number 9. You saw that today. Look, the runs he was making, he looked more natural there. And he's played on the left. And I know I said I prefer him on the left, but that's because he has been brilliant on the left. The issue with Martial this season, and as you said earlier on in previous podcasts, he's played essentially so much that when he goes out on the left, it's almost like he's forgotten what he's doing, or it's not natural to him anymore. and we've seen he doesn't go tracking back the other way. But you saw him today. Yes, 10-man Saints, but he was running them ragged. His goal was fantastic. And yet, like you said, he's scoring number 9 goals. That's what he needs to do. The jury's still out for me. But if he gets into scoring form, that's what Manchester United need to challenge City, because City is still ominous, Rob. They've got a fantastic defense. You look at their goal difference. I checked just now. It's 24. I believe ours is about 16 or 17. Maybe it's 18. I'm not too sure, but still at least 7 goals or so behind. So it's not like our defense is going to suddenly magically tighten up and be brilliant. It's not. So we need to score goals to win games. Now we need that front three firing, and we've seen in the last 2 or 3 games we haven't been doing that. So if he starts scoring again, that's only a good thing for Manchester United.
Definitely. And I think I'll say this, Anthony Martial has not been good on the left at all since Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has been the manager. You've got to go all the way back to Mourinho to look for something that looks like a good left-sided version of Anthony Martial. So that's a long time ago. And I do think that he's sold on the fact that he's a number 9. And what you're saying there is correct. When he's been on the left, you can see he does look a bit maligned. He looks a little bit kind of put out. Now, some players respond when they're kind of moved around and given different challenges. I don't think Anthony Martial is that kind of player. I think he wants to be the number 9, but of course he's got to score the goals to be the number 9. So today he scores twice. He gets an assist, obviously with the penalty, and you can only judge a player on his last game. So this is the way I look at it. You want him to go on a run, but in that 45 minutes, he's proved he can go and do the job. Now go and do the job again. It might be the case that if he is the starter and that's something that he knows now if Cavani is injured, then that he will just have that maybe innate confidence and you might just see a little bit more from him. But for me, it was more about the whole team. It was good that people took their opportunities today. Dan James gets a goal, even though I didn't think he played very well when he came on, but it was a good finish, certainly. I think Van der Beek, but opportunity missed for him.
Let's talk about Van der Beek here, Rob. You had a few questions. So there was one earlier, I think it might have been from Jordan, saying that doesn't look like the players want to pass to Van der Beek. Now, I didn't notice that today, I'll be honest with you. But Sean's got a question here saying Donny doesn't seem to suit the way we play, something we have actually said. Really want him to do well, but didn't show enough again. Is it a case of what we saw with Fred? It's just taking a bit of time to adjust. Look at Telles. Telles hasn't had a game, and he's not going to get a game. Shaw's going to play if he's fit, and that's the way it's going to be, and Telles will have to fight for his spot. But is it a case of Donny needing to adjust? I actually don't think that he fits into the system because you've got Bruno Fernandes. Now, Ollie's not going to rest Bruno as much as perhaps sometimes us fans want him to. We know Bruno wants to play week in, week out. But when Donny comes on, he doesn't do the same things as Bruno does. He doesn't press with as much ferocity. He doesn't work. He can't change the game with one moment. That's what I feel. I don't feel he has that in his locker. Maybe he does, but I haven't seen that from him. I find him passive. I don't think that he's incisive with his passing. All these things that Bruno can do. And when you put that all together, especially when the system is 4-2-3-1 built around the number 10, who is that creative force, if you're taking Bruno out and putting Donny in, United are losing a lot.
Yeah, look, even Donny van der Beek at peak Ajax, at his very best, with Ajax getting to Champions League semi-finals, even that Donny van der Beek isn't better than this Bruno Fernandes. So you have to kind of look at the levels and the balance and think, right, what do you do? Why was he brought to the football club? He was brought to the football club to strengthen the numbers, to strengthen the midfield, to strengthen the options. Now, that kind of business that United did last summer, the kind of 4 or 5 signings that they brought in, the tweaking that they did, the players that went out as well, all of that has contributed towards where Man United are in the league now this season. So this is why I look at it in kind of more of a widescreen way, because I look at Donny van der Beek's capture as part of the reason why United are where they are. What I will say this about Donny van der Beek is I'm not sure, it's not whether he's suited to Manchester United, I'm not sure he's suited to England. That's the issue. I think when you come on and you play in this league, I keep going on about it, don't I? Aggression. You have to have
true, Rob.
So I'll give you a little example today, right? And these are the little things that my eye picks up. This is how I kind of do it in terms of my work and being tactical and whatnot. There was a throw-in on the left wing, and there's Rashford there, and he's behind Rashford, and then there's a lot of space kind of behind him and to the side. And I'm just thinking, just close that space down a little bit, because it means the guy can't throw that ball over your head. And he just kind of stands still. And it's the kind of thing that I see in kids' football. And when we coach kids and we kind of say to them, you can't just stand still, especially for things like throw-ins or dead balls. Because if you stand still, you get done. And he stood still in the middle of the Premier League. You can't do it. So that tells me there's something not right there. Now, you're not telling me that Ole's not highlighting that and telling him. He will be being told that. It's a mindset. It's part of his game. Is that he's just played his whole career in a division where they play passing football on the deck, and he's played in a kind of much more freer role. If he wants to be an impact player at Manchester United, or at least get minutes, he has to show more impact. So in this 45 minutes, he could have been a bit of more of a maverick. He could have said, you know what, Scotty, you sit there, I'm going forward. What did we see? We saw McTominay getting the ball and driving it forward. That's not good. So we saw kind of Donny doubling up on the right sometimes with Mason, and we saw kind of some, one or two good things there. But at the end of this match, we're talking about United winning 9-0, and no one will say a word about Donny van de Beek. And that's his fault. Sorry, Donny, that is your fault. You had the chance to come on and impress. Do you get a chance to start the next game now? Probably not. Other players will. We've talked about Martial. He might be starting the next game now just because of the way it went. McFred, people may not like them, but they'll probably start the next game. It doesn't matter. It's not a popularity contest. It's about how good you are. And I just
Rob, let's answer this one from Ethan. Ethan, thank you for your comment. I'm not sure if you've watched some of the previous podcasts. We've covered this a lot, but the myth that Donny van de Beek can play 6 and 8, he did at Ajax. You've got to remember these things, right? At Ajax dominated possession. When do United have 75% possession? Very rarely do they have that in the Premier League. Today they did. They dominate territory. So when you're playing number 6 at Ajax, you're playing very far forward. And the other thing as well, different pace of the league. The intensity is different. So all these things together, it's not comparable. It's apples and oranges.
It's not comparable. And again, I'll just reiterate what I've said before about Donny. He can play 6, he can play 8, he can play 10, but it's a sliding scale. He's good as a 10. He always was at Ajax. He's not as good as an 8 when he's a mobile midfielder because he's having to join the dots. And when he's a 6, that's when you can get at him. And I think that's what United have highlighted. They've looked at that. They've thought, we'd like to play Donny as a 6, maybe in that double pivot, give us another option in there, maybe not play Matic as much, maybe not have to play Pogba as deep. But Donny van de Beek's failure in the pivot, and you saw it just in that first 5 minutes where it wasn't the shape wasn't a double pivot, but he allowed the midfielder to get the wrong side. Now, he was the one that made that tackle that got him the yellow card that then Southampton scored from. That wasn't given because he was a kind of shirt sleeve offside. But that was Donny van de Beek's fault. That wasn't, the 2 or 3 defenders that made mistakes after that. It's because Donny gave that foul away in what was a bad area. You can't do that. That's against Liverpool or Man City. That one goal kills you the game. It loses you the match. And that comes from just one mistake. And he shouldn't be making those mistakes. He's not a kid. He's not 18. He's been at Man United for a while now. I would have liked to have seen from here until then that his performance maybe just stepped up a level physically. But it can take a year to settle at Manchester United. He wouldn't be the first player that's taken a long time to find his feet. As you highlighted, Fred was one of them. Fred, for that first year, looked like junk, didn't he? Looked like a £52 million
looked like one of the worst signings United made, seriously.
So now Fred is useful at least, and he's found his niche or his function in the United team. And do you know how he found it? He found it by working harder.
So what do you think of this question, Rob, from Shashank, saying thoughts on Fred and his performances in the past few matches?
I think the thing is with Fred is that the reason why he's become important is he's become a force of nature. So if he was a technical player before, obviously his days playing in the Ukraine, obviously where United spotted him, he was a player that Pep Guardiola wanted for Manchester City. He was kind of seen as kind of the Fernandinho heir apparent, someone who could do a little bit of spoiling, but ultimately could also put the ball on the deck, could play the game in a team function. Now, United had to use him more in a kind of destroying sense. So he's got used to playing this kind of pivot role. And we've seen that when he's in the final third, he's not the greatest finisher, even from outside the area, though he used to be. He used to be pretty good at hitting the target, but he's not
free
anymore.
Kick taker as well, Rob. I don't know what's happened since he's
I felt sorry for him with the own goal, because he's literally on the back post ready to tap it in, and he would have got a goal there, and that would have been the easiest thing ever for him, and that would have been something well deserved. But it doesn't matter. It ended up in the net. He looked quite happy. He was kind of clapping at the end of it. That's all good. But I think with Fred, and I'll say this about all of the players that United fans call average. Your average players are the ones that take you to titles. It's the average players who go from average to good to then go and meet the players who are good to who become superstars. and you've all got to make that journey together. So that's your Freds, that's your McTominays, that's your Luke Shaws. You know, people have been going on Luke Shaw's back for years, and and for good excuse. You know, people
I
have
was
said
one of them, Rob. I was massively hard on him.
More from Luke Shaw, yeah, and this is why, because he has got this in his game. And as I said at the start of the season, for me, he could have been United's potentially player of the season going forward, because if you get the fullback positions right, like United did today, you can kill teams, absolutely kill them. But you've got to get that fullback function right. Aaron Wan-Bissaka, you know, he's a good tackling right back, but he's absolutely garbage on the front foot. So to see him score a goal today and drive the ball tells me he now knows that he's got it up there. Someone tweeted, 2 or 3 people tweeted, he's obviously been watching the Masterclass. And he obviously has, because it's the things that we want him to do, which are just normal, I think, 2021 things that you expect in the modern day for a fullback to do. You can't just be good on the back foot or be good in the tackle and do all of those things. You must be good on the front foot.
Another reason as well, Rob, is that, you know, we've seen when Bruno's dipped in form and other forward players have dipped in form. Well, these fullbacks are providing the width. They have to provide some creativity. And the last 2 games, that nobody's performed. And United, it's almost as if sometimes they play with, you know, the stabilizers on. Man City, and you look at Cancelo, you look at Trent, you look at Robertson, you look at both these top teams' fullbacks. They offer so much going forward. And United are still within touching distance while their fullbacks haven't contributed as much. Imagine if they can go to that next level. We'll be challenging.
I think it's also not, I know this is that people might not like this, but this is why you can't judge the current projects on the league table. Now, we want to be as high as we can in the league, and if you win games, hey, you'll climb a table, hey, you'll be near the top. But you've got to kind of look at it from the core of what you've got. You haven't got a Cancelo. You haven't got players that can do those kind of things in those positions. So what can you do? Well, you can improve your team. You can make sure your team is solid. You can make sure that you don't concede stupid goals. You can make sure that your fullbacks don't just sit in a flat back 4, that they actually go forward and be a tiny bit brave. If you're a little bit brave and a little bit more aggressive, good things happen. So this is why I said, you know, let's play McFred. And people today said, no, you got to play Pogba. You got to play Pogba. Paul Pogba's played 7 games in a row now after what was a bad injury. The boy needs a rest, a day off. So he got a day off today. So that's another huge positive that United won 9-0 without Paul Pogba. Because I tell you what, this project will probably go on long after Paul Pogba has left the football club. And today you've seen that Manchester United can go and beat a really good Premier League team in Southampton, albeit with a couple of sendings off and with some injuries. But they've done it without Paul Pogba, and they just did it through functionality, through hard work. And like you and me said at the start, before we even went live, I don't think Bruno played that well today. You know, he knitted things together, but he didn't have to be the player that got United over the line. Marcus Rashford, one decent cross, obviously his finish. They're good because they're the stats you want from a player like him. I don't think he was good. You know, he still looks jaded. So it was good that Marcus gets a rest, that Bruno doesn't have to win the game on his own, that United did all the right things in all of the positions. Because if you do that, then you'll beat your opponent.
Absolutely, Rob. And I want to bring up this comment here from Olu6. This is spot on. Before kickoff, yet again, and I didn't comment on the lineup because what's the point? Like sometimes I do comment on saying, okay, United doing this is why they might do that. But there's too many people, as Olu6 says over here, that were losing their minds over Lindelof, McTominay, and a few others starting. It's about time we trust the manager and leave our thoughts till full time. Look, it works 2 ways. You know, sometimes, as we saw against Sheffield United, Oli probably made too many changes, 6 changes, and it goes against you. And, you know, there are times you can criticize. But before a ball has even been kicked, Rob, and I saw this, oh, no Pogba. Yeah, because he's played so many games, you know, he needs a rest. And this is what I don't understand, that I think fans just need to wait and see how we play and then make a judgment before jumping in, because again, that's where you get the favorites. Oh, I want so-and-so to play in this way. Lindelof was faultless today, absolutely faultless. And he was very key for us building from the back. People completely negate his ability on the ball, the way, you know, he steps past the striker, the way he steps into midfield, some of his passing. And he's a very calming presence as well. People don't realize he's a talker at the back. And a lot of these things go unnoticed. But the problem is, Rob, isn't it, that some players are flavor of the month and others aren't. McTominay's not. And I'm not the biggest fan of McTominay, I'll be honest with you, but he was fantastic today. Fred's a good player for me. But again, I've criticised the double pivot. Wan-Bissaka we've criticised. But these are the players that contributed today. They're the ones that stood out, not the Brunos of the world. Cavani was good today. I wouldn't say it was outstanding. Mason was brilliant today, I thought, better than Rashford. But it's these smaller players that are actually the ones that who work hard, get their head down, and they do the dirty work, I suppose. And they deserve respect.
Look, Manchester City's rise in the last 9 games has been all about Gundogan. And because Gundogan, his form has gone through the roof, that's why Man City have been winning games. No one would have said before that run of winning 9 straight that it was going to be Gundogan who turned the key for Manchester City. So quite often it is the player that isn't the fancy name that kind of takes you forward, maybe those extra 2 or 3 steps. I will just say there in the comments, because someone's mentioned Sergio Ramos, we will talk about Sergio Ramos before the end of the show. So stay tuned for that, because I think we need to talk about him, because I think it's quite important. But I think when you kind of look at what we're talking about here with the defense and the less kind of popular players, I will say the same thing that I say on Twitter all the time. And that is, it's okay to give your own analysis before games, but if your analysis is completely laced with emotion, and let's face it, it is. So you take Paul Pogba out. If I'm a fan, Paul Pogba's my favourite player, say, and Paul Pogba's not playing today, and I'm going to spend 90 minutes watching Manchester United, I'm going to tweet like crazy that I'm really, really unhappy. Look,
There's so much of that today,
I'm
Rob.
tweeting with two phones with 2 thumbs. Yeah, I'm that crazy. I've got 2 accounts, my burner account and my real account. So it's kind of like that. People have got to calm the you-know-what down. I wasn't going to swear then, because obviously we'll get done by YouTube. But that's how we are, and that's where we are as football fans. And I keep saying it all the time. This is why I talk about fan channels and things like this, about the hype. Don't get too high, don't get too low. That's not just a catchphrase. That's because there's absolutely no reason to get upset about a team selection unless it's absolutely wild and crazy. And seeing United play 4-2-3-1 with the players that have taken them to the top of the table, that's not actually that crazy. At the end of the game, if you lose to Southampton, then you can do the post-mortem. Then you can look at it and say, why did we not start Pogba? Then you can kind of put those bits together. But you're right, with the comment there, we see it all the time with Twitter. But I think that's just the nature of social media, and we have to accept that, is that people go on social media to shout. People don't go on social media to debate. Like, this is the kind of, I think, common misconception that that Twitter is a debating forum. It's not a debating forum. It's a shouting forum. So you go on there and people generally shout. You don't get people on there being overtly calm. I try to be, but that's just the way I decide to do it. But I think overall, we can't worry about those things. We just got to try and see that if Ole can bring these players on. For me, I look at Scott McTominay and I see Darren Fletcher. Yeah, I see a player who used to win championships with United and was surrounded by incredible talent and won titles, and he contributed.
That's the key, though, Rob. Surround him with a lot of quality, and he'll be a huge part of the squad, because he is. And you just hear the comments that come out of the United camp. He has got the mentality. I always say about McTominay, world-class mentality, world-class attitude, but he's a good player. He's not an outstanding
we never said back in the day, oh, Darren Fletcher's not Paul Scholes. We didn't say that because it's a kind of stupid thing to say, because we know he's not Paul Scholes. But hey, Paul Scholes wasn't arriving at the back post, with his head up there challenging a centre-back either, or making a last gasp tackle. He wasn't doing any of those things either. So, every player has a function, and you have to respect that. And that's the most important thing. All through the ages of Manchester United and the successful teams through the 90s, all the way through to the turn of the century, you've got to remember when United won that first FA Cup under Fergie in 1990, who scored the winning goal? Can you tell me, Haider? I can tell you.
I wasn't born.
You weren't born, but you should know. You should know. It was Lee Martin. Lee Martin scored that goal from left back, running in the replay, coming in, arriving late and volleying it into the roof of Crystal Palace's net. Lee Martin scoring that goal triggered the start of something brilliant for Manchester United. Lee Martin was not respected as a player. He was your Scott McTominay of the day, a local lad, a workman-like kind of kid. And he scored that goal. And it was important. It was vital. Before that, in the run, the player that scored the goal that saved Fergie's job in that same cup run was Mark Robbins. Yeah, so these players are the ones that contributed to a long line of success. And I look at Scotty, and that's how I feel about him. I look at Scotty, I don't think, you're going to be, peak Perlo one day. But I look at him and think, no, you're there because you come in every day, you train like a dog, and you show the manager you're worth it. Because I tell you what, if he wasn't worth it, he wouldn't play. It's as simple as that.
Very well said, Rob. We've got loads of questions coming in. Guys, I'll try and get to them all. Thank you very much. We'll start with the Ramos one because I think that's quite interesting. Is there any chance that Sergio Ramos, for me, absolutely fearlessly, the winner, I think he might be past it, but I wouldn't say no to him because I think he's exactly the sort of personality Manchester United need. But is there any chance, Rob, have you heard anything from your source at Manchester United about any contact with him? And would he be a good pairing for Maguire? I think the pairings side of it, I don't think he would be, but having him in that squad, I think that would be huge. You've seen what the effect Cavani's had on this Manchester United squad, which is a very young squad still.
Well, I'd like to see what the viewers think in our comments. So it'd be good if they all kind of said what they think about Sergio Ramos, because he is a player that obviously splits opinion for two reasons. Well, as you said there, is he past it? I think that's one big question. The other question always is does he use Manchester United to get a better contracts at Real Madrid? And we do know that he has in the past. I think you've got to look at where United are today and where we stand as a championship outfit. Where are we in our mentality? Now, when we signed Cavani, I would say that most United fans were not very hot on it. And when I went on different podcasts and said that it was a good sign-in, my main real reason for that and saying he was a good sign-in is that he brings the mentality. Yeah, it's not the case that he is past it or not. You're going to have to use him intermittently. He's not your first choice striker, though, of course, he's pushed his way into that bracket. But he comes to the club and everyone trains with him and everyone looks at him and goes, "Ooh, yeah, I've got to do a bit of that." And that's important. You know, when you bring players to the club, you want a bit of that from experienced players. If Sergio Ramos came to Manchester United, he would be coming to Manchester United not for a holiday in the winter rain of Manchester. You know, he doesn't need it. Yeah, he could sit in Spain. He could sit at the sidelines in Madrid, still earn a good wage, still be a legend, still be a hero, still be the captain, and finish his career, probably go to the MLS and play in Miami or LA or somewhere like that. If he comes to Manchester United, and I do believe that there is a good chance that he will, because I think he's going to be available and he wants to come to the Premier League, and the team that he has eyed for a long time is Manchester United. And there has been a long flirtation between the player and the football club. And I think United do identify that they need a little bit more at centre-back. The issue is, of course, to, I think, the layman fan and also to us when we look at tactics is pace. And we would like to see more pace at centre-back. But you've also got to look at the market. Upamecano will be available in the summer. I do not
strike off the list.
I don't believe that Upamecano is destined for Manchester United as it stands. I think he'll go to Liverpool. That's my feelings. Now, Liverpool signed 2 centre-backs in this window, but they're looking long-term in their project. So there will be players obviously leaving that football club next in the next transfer window as well. You look at Upamecano, and there is something obviously there between Liverpool and also Bayern Munich. So those two clubs are ahead of Manchester United as it stands. Manchester United will know this. They will absolutely know this. They will know it today. So what do? How do you strengthen that position, maybe even just for a year, to bring in someone who's got an elite mentality that will drag players up? You know, and as I said, you've only got to look at what Telles has done to Luke Shaw. So Luke Shaw has to take the credit. He's done it to himself. But Luke Shaw has looked at the competition, looked at this guy in training and gone, I need to do a bit of that. And it's changed his game. I think when you look at the centre-backs that United have got, if we're looking at pace, we have got 2 very, very pacey centre-backs in Tuanzebe and Mengi. Now, Mengi's got out on loan to Derby. It's a fantastic move for him.
Yeah,
it's absolutely the right move for the boy. That's great. Now, we know Tuanzebe's had some hiccups in terms of getting minutes. You know, in the last game wasn't particularly great. Obviously, the deflection against Sheffield United. But you can put that by the by. But he is quick. So you have got some pace there. You might end up with Tuanzebe and Ramos as your back 2. That might be something that you explore next season. Do I think United will sign Sergio Ramos? I wouldn't say no today. Is he my personal choice? Not at all. You know, I don't think he's the player I would go, yep, there's a solution to the centre-back problem. But if you're elite and you can manage yourself and manage space, that's what Ramos does. He manages the space around him. And do you know what he says? If you're going past me, I'm going to kick you into row Z.
Well, Rob, there's a lot of comments here. So we've got G Fox saying he's dirty, and the player I don't want in our team. I think he's poison. I honestly think if Sergio Ramos was in a Manchester United shirt, I'd be absolutely delighted. Do you know why? Because there's not enough players like that anymore. us United fans love Roy Keane. What's different between Roy Keane and Sergio Ramos?
Sergio Ramos is we've met Sergio Ramos for work. He's the opposite of poison. Yeah, he is a force of nature. He would come to Manchester United and he would demand success. He wouldn't sit on his laurels. He wouldn't be there. He wouldn't sulk. He'd be like, I'm going to start. I'm going to make you better. And when we've won the title, everyone's going to go, hey, Sergio, you went to England and proved how good you are. That's the kind of guy he is. He's not coming for a holiday, like I said. Now, I get why United fans don't like him and Liverpool fans really hate him. Like,
that's why I love him more.
For obvious reasons. And there's some kind of dream scenario going on here that if he came to Manchester United and helped United to silverware at the expense of Liverpool, there would be some kind of dynasty that flows from that, because it's the same thing with Cantona. But there's always that sign at Liverpool years ago where it said about, come back when you've won all these titles, Eric Cantona. And of course, United went on this huge dominant run, even when Cantona left the club. Now, I'm not saying Sergio Ramos would be that player, but I do think that United lack mentality. There's still something missing there in the dressing room where you can actually say to them, right, what do we do next? Well, I'll tell you what, the guy that's won all those Champions League finals and all those La Ligas, if he's sat in your dressing room and he can still physically do it, and that's a really important part. We've seen with Cavani. I saw one of the things, I think it was James Jackson there, commented that Cavani's the same age as Vardy or around the same kind of age. Well, Vardy's still playing in the Premier League. Cavani can definitely play for the next year or two, and I think that's what will happen. I think he'll stay. Sergio Ramos might be at the back end of his career. You might only get a year, maybe 2 years out of him, but he might install something in that team that you then take on for years to come. And I think that Maguire could learn from him. I think that Lindelof could learn from him. I certainly think Tuanzebe and Mengi will learn from him. And it might be a case that, say, to balance the books, you move on Rojo like you have. Rojo's gone. And you move on Phil Jones. And if you move on those two just to get your Sergio Ramos, that does make sense. It does fit. Would you prefer Upamecano? Absolutely,
but I do think, yeah.
I think United are out of the Upamecano race. I think when it comes to it, and we get to the trigger, that Bayern Munich are ahead in the stakes, and Liverpool have always been the favoured destination for the player if he comes to England. That's not saying United can't get him, but it means that United might have to look elsewhere. It's the same reason why City went and got Diaz. It wasn't someone who was like their number one choice, but he fitted the profile. And you've only got to see how well Diaz has done and what he's done to John Stones. So, you then get 2 for 1, don't you? A guy that's failing and one that kind of drags the other one along, and they become a really good centre-back partnership. If United could do that with Ramos +1, I don't care who the +1 is. I'm not going to sit here sulking if United are winning, and right at the top of the table. If Sergio Ramos could do that for Manchester United, my arms are open wide, Sergio. Come to the club. Let's give it a go. I get it might be slightly regressive for some fans, but it's not the worst thing. It's better than signing no one for that position. That's the way I would look at it.
Exactly, Rob. And also, if you had said a year ago you could have, or 2 years ago, Cavani and Ramos in the dressing room, we know how young this squad is. I mean, you would not say no to that. You just would. And you don't know what's going to happen with Paul Pogba, Rob. I know that he wants to leave.
It depends where your build is. It depends where your build is. Like I said this on one or two of the last shows, that if you can go and get your Van Dijk, so be it. Go and get your Van Dijk. He takes you over the top. You start winning titles because you got your Van Dijk. You go and get your Alisson. You start winning titles. I don't think there is a Van Dijk out there. And Jurgen Klopp said it in his presser last week. There isn't really a kind of £80 million generational centre-back knocking around. Upamecano is probably the closest thing you've got to it. And then a little bit older is someone like Koulibaly, who may be looking for his chance in the Premier League, but is now getting older. And there's a few. I mean, he's not quite as good as he was a couple of years ago.
There's Koundé, and there's obviously we know Pau Torres is the number one target.
Torres, of course.
Yeah, but they're both going to cost 60 million plus.
But then you see, if you clear out Phil Jones, you take his wage off the books, 100 grand, and then you clear out Rojo like you have, and then you kind of trim one or two others. It's very easy to afford a Ramos and a Torres. So you bring both to the club. And you say, like you have with Cavani and Pellistri, you look at kind of the setup there with the Uruguayans. You can kind of look at the La Liga and say, well, that kind of fits. You two guys from La Liga come into the system. Can you help each other settle? Can you help us win more games? That's ultimately what signings are for.
The Spain starting centre-back pairing as well, Rob. So
there we go. So you can see that there's some sense there. There's some logic in the madness. And it's not something that I would be wholly against. In the same way that when people were saying to me, you can't be happy about Cavani, I was saying it's not that I'm happy, but I know it makes sense. I know that he will bring something, and let's give it 6 months. Let's see if he is shot. Like, don't forget, Cavani could still get injured. Yeah, he had a really bad injury at PSG before he left the football club. It was one of the reasons why he ended up kind of not playing games last season. It was that injury that kept coming back. Fingers crossed, he's fit at the moment, but it's really important that Ole rotates him. If he plays 7, 8, 9, 10 games in a row and Martial's just sat on his backside, then that's not going to help the squad. You need to rotate them in and out. So tonight, yeah, he's gone off injured. We don't know, obviously, any of the significance of that. We need to find out a little bit more than what we know. And it means that Martial needs to play games. So you have to have the rotation. That's where I see Ramos coming in. I wouldn't see Ramos coming in playing 50 games, 60 games. But I would see Ramos coming in and playing a significant role in the Premier League, maybe playing all of the cup games, maybe playing the European matches as well at times. It's about rotation and having really strong, experienced pieces in your squad.
Yeah, spot on. And there's a comment here from Raunak saying Thiago Silva is doing it at 36. Yeah. Ramos can certainly do it at 34. And that's the thing. People thought Thiago Silva would come in. Look, he's got Zuma. He's had Rudiger recently next to him. Pace. And that's important. And I do agree. Ramos and Maguire, that probably wouldn't work. But we've got options. You've got Bailly if he's going to stay. But the big thing you see with Thiago Silva, Rob, even at 36, he's got that. He's such a smart footballer. There's a reason why he was one of the. He doesn't rely on pace because his positioning is fantastic. His awareness, he understands the spacing. He's just a fantastic player. And Chelsea do look a better side. They've got Thiago Silva. Ramos is 34. I don't think he's finished. I think United need that. It's almost like a rocket up the backside. This club needs. They need someone to come in and have the standards up here. That's the most important.
Just the one last thing to add about Ramos is that this time round, his contract will not be earth-shattering. So in the last 2 rounds of when he's been linked to Manchester United, he's been linked with kind of supersonic wages that would break pay structures and all of these things. And he's used that with Real Madrid to get the deals that he wanted. This time, his choice really is stay at Real Madrid for a reduced contract, maybe earn double that at Manchester United, maybe 200, 250, something like that, which is not off United's pay scale, or go and have a holiday in the MLS in America. I don't think he's quite ready for that in the same way that Cavani wasn't ready. And 2 years in the Premier League, he knows he'll earn good money. He can enhance his reputation. He's playing in a competition he's never played in before. And he's a tough nut. You know, he would love the Premier League. He would love all the kind of aggression stuff. And he would be that guy saying to the team, what are you lot doing? Yeah, he would be breaking the dressing room. He'd be there with Bruno shoulder to shoulder, wouldn't he? Saying, I demand higher standards. So will it happen? Won't it happen? We'll wait and see. It is more rumor at the moment than fact. But certainly the bits we're hearing from the correct sources are saying that it's a goer. You know, there's talks going on, and that Ramos is ready to leave Real Madrid, and that his main option would be for him to come to the Premier League, and that would be Manchester United.
Very, very interesting. We will keep tabs on that, obviously, going into summer. Rob, question to hear from Asoko. At what point does Diallo start, and what did you make of Mason's performance today? I thought he was really good, but he has a tendency to delay his shots, which isn't good enough. Diallo is interesting. Yeah, he had a really good game. Obviously, it's under 23's first game, but Rob, you can tell that there's a player there. He looked a cut above the rest. I mean, young Hugill as well, by the way. He's going to be, as he carries on developing, he's going to be fantastic. I believe he's not even 17 yet. He's playing in the under 23, banging in goals. He's a really exciting one for the future. And I know Ollie mentioned him very recently, saying it won't be long before you might see him in the first team. But what I like from Diallo is clearly he's very natural on that right wing. He's a natural winger. You can see the way he plays, the way that he understands the spacing, in between the centre back and the full back. He knows he's got to play on the shoulder in between there. You know that he's got good 1-2. He's got a finish as well, which is fantastic. Do you think that Ollie will look to fast track him into the side? Because I think we've got to temper expectations. I'm seeing a lot of people get very, very excited, and I'm excited, but he's a young kid. He's not even played that many games in Serie A. Now, he has a bad performance in the Premier League. People are going to write him off again. It's too much pressure. So what are your thoughts on that? And I thought Mason was fantastic today. He looked dangerous. He looks sharp. He's looking more match fit. And I think going forward, I preferred Rashford on the left and Greenwood on the right. And I'm going to add a question, because there's a question earlier from, I think it was Mark, who was asking, where does Pogba fit into this? I think Pogba's best position is in the double pivot. personally. I think when he plays on the left, we lose the Rashford, Shaw sort of telepathy. And I just think that United look more balanced. Not that Pogba doesn't do it on the left, but they've got more pace on the break.
It depends how you want to play, though, doesn't it? So, but let's kind of answer those questions in order. How much will you see of Amad Diallo this year? I think if he gets on the football pitch 5 times for the team this year in the Premier League, he'll be lucky. It's not going to happen. He's 18. He's just come to England. He's never played English football. We always talk about fitness and how you need to be. And Ole's talked about that specifically, about the kind of training program that he's on and that what he's going to be doing in the next 4 to 5 weeks. Now, there's no doubt he will get on the bench and he might get some of those early Ronaldo cameos. Like, do you remember when Ronaldo came into the team against Bolton for like 10 minutes and did 3,000 step overs and we all kind of went, oh my God, what have we got here? So we might see a little bit of that from Diallo, a little bit of kind of mercurial skill on the right-hand side. For me, when everyone is fit and everyone is healthy and Greenwood is firing and playing normally, and you saw a little bit more of that today, a player who has made steps in his fitness to come back into the first team, and that's why he started today, that you got a better performance out of him. And as you get better performances out of him, as he gets fitter, he's going to score goals. But don't be too worried. Like someone said there that he delays his shot. What? Have you ever seen Mason Greenwood play? He doesn't delay his shot. He'll take his time when he needs to, but his whole idea is about being a sharpshooter, about hitting the target. And he is the best finisher at the football club. So we can't really say to him, Mason, you don't get a shot off quick enough. You can say about Marcus. Marcus 100 times, will frustrate you by not getting his shot off when he should do, but not Mason. I would say that as things stand, that Mason is way above Diallo. Diallo is one for the future. I'd like to see him get some cameos. We've got, Europa League still to come. Maybe that's where you kind of blood him in, get some extra games. He's not going to feature much in the Premier League. It's just the way it is. I think United have got enough on that side. I kept saying this before, that when you look at what United have got on that right-hand side, it's going to be Mason or it's going to be Marcus. They're the two that are going to dovetail, because Marcus can't play on the left every week. It just doesn't happen. It's just the way it is. You can't play Cavani every week, which means that you've got to play Martial in there, which means Martial can't play on the left, which means you've got to have this balance. So it's just going to be a case that you'll see that those front three that have been there last season were doing it. Will be asked to do it again in the main. Unless something terrible happens and someone gets a bad injury, I can't see that Diallo will be kind of playing matches. What was the other question? What was the extra one that you said?
No, I said, Mark had a question earlier saying, where's Pogba's best position? Where would he fit into the side?
Yeah, well, but let's be honest about Paul Pogba. I probably don't think he'll be at United next year. So that's the first point. Not because he hates Man United or, desperate to leave. I just think that, especially with his form being good this season, someone's going to be a taker. Someone's going to buy it. Real Madrid, Barcelona, Juventus, whoever. But he's going to get an option. He's going to get PSG. But like if I'm like Paul Pogba is a Parisian. Yeah. And he's had chances to go back to Paris throughout the whole of his life. Now, he's got a kid now. He might be thinking, yeah, let me go home. That might be something I'm interested in. I don't think Paul Pogba's motivated by winning the league title. It's just not what he does. I think he wants to win the biggest title. So, of course, if Neymar stays at PSG, which I don't believe he will, if you think Mbappe stays at PSG, then there's maybe that road to bring in Pogba as your third wheel. But I think that there's other clubs for him. Now, he might stay. Now, positionally, where's his best position? I think in a 4-2-3-1, if you play him with Matic, that has worked really well. United have got an incredibly high win percentage, but it certainly shows that United lack a bit of aggression in the pivot when you put those two in there. Not because they're not physically strong enough. I think people mix that up all the time. Someone said to me before the game, what are you saying? Do you mean Pogba's not aggressive?
No, and tenacity, Rob. That's the word.
It's not. When I say aggression, sometimes it is just about showing your teeth. And it's just easy as that. It's getting in and just getting your head into someone and saying, look in my eyes and I'm going to psychologically beat you today. And I don't think really Paul Pogba gives you that. I don't think Matic gives you that. So where does Paul Pogba play best? I think this season we've seen him mostly operate progressively between the pivot and the front. And when he's had freedom on the left, he's looked the most at home. Now, Ole has said countless times, Paul Pogba's favourite position is on the left. And we all know this. So what should you do? You should try and play players where they want to play. That's what I believe in, that philosophy. You can mix it around. Paul Pogba will do the double pivot for you all day long. But I don't want Paul Pogba destroying my pivot. Yeah, I want McFred. I want those two flying into tackles and risking yellow cards and doing those things. I don't want Paul Pogba, maybe taking 4 or 5 touches around the box and being clever. I want Paul Pogba getting it where he's got a tiny bit more space, where he can get you from A to Z very, very quickly. I think he's better on the left. The statistics show that he is better on the left in terms of his outlay. He can create from the pivot, but I'm worried that, I think when you kind of try and stretch that function, United have looked worse and have lost games because of that in years gone by. And I think with Ole, he needs that solid base in there, and Pogba's not it.
Well, we'll definitely have to see what happens on the weekend, Rob, because that would be a big indication of what his strongest team is. Because I think
he'll play Pogba. He'll play Pogba.
Yeah, I think you might see Marcus on the right. That's what I think you might see.
Yeah, and you might even see if Cavani is injured, you might even see Rashford through the middle, and you might see Pogba on the left and Mason on the right, depending on what the manager thinks of Martial starting. He might think, no, do you know what, Martial, another day on the bench, if he can come on with 20 minutes to go, he gives me something extra. You've got to remember that starting 11 is not everything that's important. It's the finishing 11. It's the 11 that win you the game at 95 minutes. It's not the one from minute 1. So I think he might play Pogba in that match and then maybe change it around later on.
Yeah, I agree with Kieran here saying I still want to see Mason, Cavani, Rashford. I like what I saw today. I did comment on it. I like the way that Mason and Marcus link up when they're playing, when they're on form and when they're looking sharp. I thought United look much more dangerous. But Rob, let's go to the final word. And what I will say is we always say never get too high, never get too low. I'm going to get very high, not like that, before anyone says anything in the comments. I'll be high on Manchester United winning. But I'm just really, really pleased because I went into this game and I was nervous. Even though Saints had a few key players out, I was nervous because we've said this before, that this United side, when they lose a few games over the last 2 or 3 years under Ole, they can go on a really, really bad run. And that was my fear, that I was not sure whether this was just a blip or whether this was a series of bad results. But they've shown that they've got some mental fortitude to them. They've still obviously lost to Sheffield United. They should have beaten Arsenal. But all things considered, that's progress, isn't it, in terms of the mentality?
Yes. And I think the thing is, it's very easy to kind of get high on a 9-0, and you should do. You should enjoy it. Everyone should be really happy tonight. You go to bed, no stress, no worry. Your football team has just shown that they're actually quite a good football team when everyone's been telling you all week that they're rubbish. So I think it's more about balance, and that's what pleases me. So after the Sheffield United game, look, the Sheffield United game was infinitely easier to win than this one. It should have been. Southampton are a better team than Sheffield United, yet United made a mess of it against the Sheffield United team that doesn't have anything up top, doesn't have a Danny Ings, doesn't have a Ward-Prowse in the middle, hasn't got all those kind of players that can pull strings, and they certainly don't have the work rate that Southampton have. Southampton are the hardest workers in the Premier League. What I like today, as much as the goals, people go, oh, what's the balancing point here? The goals for me were great, but it was more about the performance and the work rate and winning the game from the pivot and winning the game from the fullbacks. Those two things, if they work for you every week, you will win 8 out of 10 games every 10 match periods. That's what will happen. You might lose 1 or 2 somewhere in a freak result. You can always lose games, even when you're a good team. But for me, United in the last few weeks have looked a little bit tired. They've looked a little bit jaded. They've looked a little bit short up here. It's got to the point where you're kind of saying, Bruno, what can you do to win games? You've done all these things for a year. Today, it wasn't about that. It wasn't about Bruno. It wasn't about Marcus. It was about the team and about unfashionable players winning you matches, but also winning you it totally emphatically. 9-0, you can't really beat that result.
Absolutely, Rob. And what I will say is I still come back to that statistic that Shawshank said. United have won more than 5-0 8 times. That's incredible. I still can't get my head around that. Goals are
the best medicine. Goals are always the best medicine, but winning is what matters. So do you know what? Winning 8 times 5-0 is fantastic. It's a nice little stat, but it's a Twitter stat that people can put out and say, oh, does that mean we're great? What's better is winning 1-0 for 38 games in the Premier League. Yeah, because then you win 3 points every week and you get maximum points. You've got to win games, find ways to win them. When you're not playing well against Sheffield United, you've got to find a way to win. When you go to Arsenal and they're young and green, go and punish them. Go and win that game 1-0. You know, if we'd won 1-0 tonight, that would have also been okay. But 9-0 gets you high because it's lots of goals. You feel entertained. If United are not going to win 9-0 every week, what I want to see from them is a consistency in their performance and more players doing it. You can carry one player on one night or two players, but you can't carry 7 or 8 like we did against Sheffield United, because if that happens, doesn't matter who you play in this league, you will lose. Tonight, I think we had 11 players all on it, all showing that they wanted to win and showing that they're worthy of that shirt.
Absolutely spot on. Guys, thank you so much for your comments. It's been a fantastic show. If you're new here as well and you're watching it on Periscope, do jump over to Twitter or YouTube and give us a follow or subscribe. Give a like to the video as well. All your support has been massive for us. Myself and Rob are really taken aback by so many great comments and so many compliments, and we couldn't have done this all without you. So, Rob, any final words to say?
No, just thanks to everyone who's been joining us. We've been completely shocked by how big our audiences have been and how much support we've had. But what I will say is this: please keep supporting us through this season. Keep retweeting, keep supporting us on other platforms, spreading the word, telling your friends, telling your family, telling all the United fans that you know, and we'll keep doing this show for you.
Absolutely. You won't get any clickbait or reactionary nonsense here. Only well thought out and reasoned facts and stats. Thank you very much for listening. This is Manchester United Masterclass, and we'll see you next time.